Let's delve into some of the matchups to watch in this one. What are the things that you think will be interesting in the schematic battle of this between the Cowboys and the Eagles?
So my biggest thing, the biggest deficiency I saw in that Eagles game, and I've kind of seen it all season, but they've covered it up, is their linebacking core. So I'm interested to see how Morrow and Cunningham from the Eagles can defend in the run, those slot guys, the tight ends, the running backs out the backfield, because they did a very poor job, and I think that's the reason they got their doors blown off against the 49ers. So if they're able to clean it up, I think it'll be a lot closer game. If not, Jake Ferguson, Tony Pollard, they're going to have a field day. So that's the matchup I'm most inclined to watch.
Yeah, man. Along those lines, Jake Ferguson, and I'm also leaning on, in some ways, our friends at Blogging the Boys. Brian Martin wrote an interesting piece of the 3 matchups that he's looking out for in this contest. Jake Ferguson versus the Eagles defense is absolutely one of those. We've talked about it of late, especially talking with the G-Bag Nation, talking about it on this program and just all over 105 through the Fan, how Jake Ferguson is really coming into his own as a tight end. He's clearly tight end 1 for your team, and he's been really good and found a really good rapport with Dak Prescott, particularly attacking the seam, which is like, I mean, that's a place where you're playing really good quarterback throwing throwing into the seam of, the defense, especially when you consider the ways in which defenses kind of started putting that too high safeties to try and force teams to go underneath. If you can attack the middle of the field with that tight end, it really gives you an opportunity to do big damage. And Jake Ferguson is exactly that type of tight end. It feels like, and especially like if you think about it from a fantasy perspective, like fantasy football, when you start drafting for fantasy football, tight end is a high commodity because there's only a few of them that are like game changers, right? There's maybe like 4 or 5. And then after that, you're just getting a tight end, right? And it's like they're all kind of interchangeable. Jake Ferguson profiles as one of those guys in that high level. And some of that is the way that he plays and like kind of the reckless abandon that he seems to kind of throw himself into. But some of that is like the athletic ability. One, he seems to be very confident and comfortable catching the football, but then also getting some yards after the catch, having some awareness. He loves hurdling. I don't know the last time I saw a player that loved hurdling as much as Jake Ferguson. Sometimes it looks like he's trying to hurdle dudes that are not there. But Jake Ferguson has an opportunity. Like you said, the linebackers in this one leave something to be desired, and that really points to the middle of the field and the places where I think Jake Ferguson can get a little busy.
They got Darius Leonard for a reason.
Sure, but the thing about Shaq Leonard is
I don't think he's going to cover up those deficiencies.
Yeah, he's not as much of a cover guy. Particularly not now.
They signed him for a reason. We'll see if he plays at all. I don't know the status on that, if he's going to be suiting up on Sunday. But that linebacking core is definitely the part that I think getting exposed. The part that I think will win or lose the game, though, as it is in most of these games, is the trenches. If the Cowboys can protect Dak Prescott, I'm fearing for Hassan Reddick. Moving all around the field, going against Terrence Steele. So if Terrence Steele holds his own and Hassan Reddick doesn't have 2 sacks, a bunch of pressures, Cowboys win this game. Hassan Reddick's in the backfield all game. It's going to be a tough one for the Cowboys. Going to have to come down to the wire. Yeah,
and you mentioned Hassan Reddick. He went off in the last time that you played this game. He definitely flashed in a big way for Philadelphia. Don't forget Jalen Carter, who has had a very good season this year and is continuing coming on. And so it's going to be incumbent upon this offensive line for the Cowboys, and particularly the guy Terrence Steele, where I imagine Hassan Reddick is probably going to get some rushes off of that edge where Terrence Steele is. They're going to have to cover themselves in glory, right? They're going to need to
some chip blocks will probably be there.
I don't doubt it, but yeah, no, they're going to need to make sure that they do well. And look, man, the last time they covered up or they played in this game, Terrence Steele played one of his worst performances, not just of the year, probably of his career.
Yes, it was bad. It was bad. A bunch of whiffs. It wasn't even just some just getting beat. There was some where he didn't even make contact.
Right.
With the Lion.
And Dak Prescott being able to sit back there and dissect defense, that plays into the incredible way that he's playing right now. So he can find some time. He can make time in some ways. One of the things that is good about the mobility that Dak has and that he's willing to lean a little bit more into again. But if you do not force him to have to do that, if you can give him the time necessary, you can really help this out, right? There was 12 quarterback pressures, 7 hurries, and 4 sacks when it came to that performance in week 9.
And he still balled out.
Yes.
Dak is still the highest graded by Pro Football Focus quarterback under pressure with it. I believe an 80.9 out of all starting quarterbacks. He's the highest graded. So he still balled out with that. But at this moment, Sunday Night Football, if the Eagles D-line lives in the backfield, it's going to be a long day for the Cowboys. I still think the Cowboys can prevail and make it a game, but the way you're going to win this one is protecting Dak Prescott, giving him time to get it to his playmakers, which I think they will do, but it's still a tough task. That Eagles D-line is still the best part of their team, so stopping them is no easy task. And we can talk about it all we want. They got to do it on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to matter in a big way, especially because if you let Dak sit back there, then we can go back to and talking about Jake Ferguson, the Eagles defense, right? You can go back to allowing him to really attack the secondary. And the Eagles secondary is not the same vaunted secondary that it had once been, right?
Said that preseason. They let a lot of guys go. People thought, hey, it'll be this. It's not the same defense, and we're seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. The talent-wise is a little bit different. The also, in addition, like the play calling has shifted up somewhat. And Dak Prescott, again, not to belabor the point, but he's playing great football. I imagine that the way that this offense is going for the Cowboys, they have a level of comfortability right now. And the way that they are cooking right now, they should be able to attack that secondary, provided that you, like you said, Hassan Reddick is not bearing down. Jalen Carter's not breaking up the pocket and, rushing 100%. Up the middle, right? Because that's the tough part about it, is rushing up the middle is one of the things that's the worst for a quarterback sitting in the pocket, right? If you have pressure up in your face, that changes the way that you have to play. And so if they could give him the right amount of protection, he should be able to have another of the great performances that he's been putting on over the last probably 8 weeks in the NFL.
He's got the M. He's got half of the V on his MVP. He needs to finish that V and finish that P, and half of that V can be finished with a W in Jerry World this Sunday. Big one.
From the 972, they said, don't forget he did flash, speaking of Hassan Reddick, but remember they didn't win. We beat ourselves, right? Because if we don't make the mistake, we would have won the Eagles game. Yeah, no, of course, right? But like, this is the thing is, you're not going to take that game per se and say, well, okay, play that game again and then just change this little thing. It's a different game.
There was some mistakes that we made, more than just the out of bounds and last second knee down at the goal line. There was more mistakes.
I think the point mostly being like, you played a close enough game and that if you change a little bit, you win, of course. But the thing about it is that this is a whole other game at this instance. Yes, you're playing the same team, but you're in a different state. You could say the same when we talk about this Cowboys offense is at a whole higher level than even it was at that point. So you got to come in with a different perspective. And one of the places where it's not entirely different, but a little bit different, DaRon Bland. Actually, let me ask you, do you feel differently about DaRon Bland than you did going into that first Eagles game? No.
I think DaRon Bland's a great cover corner. And I think there's a lot of film on him. Guys are studying him. They're realizing where they can get him. There's been really no corner in our league that's just allowed a 0 passer rating the whole year. You're going to get got a couple times. Cornerback is the hardest position, I think, in pro sports outside of quarterback to play. So you're going to get got. And I said this after the Seahawks game. DaRon Bland was playing great coverage most of that game. DK's just a really good man beater. And Geno Smith probably played one of the best games throwing the football that he's ever played with my two eyes. Putting the ball in the perfect spot. Safeties were out of position a lot. So I don't blame that game on DaRon Bland got cooked. There was a lot of times he was in the right spot. I don't think
you have to go to that place to then acknowledge the fact that like teams are feeling comfortable trying to.
They can feel comfortable all they want, and then we see what happens. He gets them a pick.
Yeah, so but if you're going to take that perspective, then there's no point in talking about the game, right? Like I think that there's reason and there's areas, or there's room rather, is the word that I'm looking for, to like have a full conversation without simply saying, well, it's fine, right? Like DaRon Bland has had some instances where he has been a little bit open to being attacked. Now, of course, he's still going to come down with these interceptions for the most part, turn the football over. He still has that level of ball skills.
I'm not worried.
And that's fair. I'm not particularly worried about him either. I do think, though, that like that is going to be a matchup to pay attention to, because when you talk about the idea of, well, DK Metcalf is big and fast and able to attack those. Well, what if the team that you're playing this week has one of those that also played at the same school at the same time?
And
right? Like you have one.
We saw AJ Brown get off in the first quarter, and the San Francisco defense adjusted, so he can have his couple glance route and catches his yards in the first quarter, and then Dan Quinn and that defense is going to adjust. I'm not worried at all about personal accolades of someone getting a couple catches in the first quarter or first half even. I think the game plan overall favors in DaRon Bland and then the Cowboys defense, and I'm not worried about a couple highlight plays that someone makes in the first half. So, no, not worried. DaRon Bland will get his, and defense Cowboys will get theirs.
Look, I think you're being a little bit dismissive of what the Eagles are capable. Look,
I'm not. I feel very confident about how the Cowboys are playing versus Eagles team, and I've said it before. This Eagles team is overrated. I'm not saying they're bad. No one's saying they're a bottom 5 team in the league. I just think they're a little overinflated by a couple close wins, and I'm not that impressed by the Eagles' play calling and how they run their offense. And we saw it against the 49ers. I don't think the Cowboys are the 49ers. They're not on that level, and that's been very clear. But I also don't think the Eagles are just going to show up in here and just A.J. Brown is just like DK Metcalf, and he's going to torch Deron Bland for 300 yards, and he's going to go off for 3 touchdowns. I don't think that's going to happen, and I'm not worried. They watched their film. They know their mistakes, and obviously me saying it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but hopefully they correct it, and I think we'll see that come Sunday night.
Well, in the same ways that you're talking about not being concerned, it seems like Nick Bosa of the San Francisco 49ers feels like not only did they, beat the brakes off the Eagles, that they, did it well enough to expose just exactly how any other team should be able to do that. Check this audio of him talking about the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Eagles and Jalen Hurts have been figured out.
Yeah, I mean, you see it on tape, though. And then, obviously, we put the blueprint out there. Hopefully, the Cowboys watch the tape. We made Jalen stay in the pocket and escape outside instead of those big gaps, and paid off. Because Jalen's looking at the rush every play. So, yeah, you just have to be disciplined and not give him that quick escape route where he could get to his guys quick.
Blake, how do you hear that Nick Bosa quote? You think that he's spot on in his analysis there?
I think he's spot on. I think it's funny how he says, I hope the Cowboys watch the tape. Obviously, they're going to watch the tape. But, he's saying hopefully they dissect it and see what we did to Jalen Hurts. They didn't let him have those quick, right up the middle quarterback draw-esque or quick escape routes through the A and B gap routes. And they made him, hey, we're going to keep – I don't know if you watched really closely to everyone listening. They weren't really trying to sack Jalen Hurts. They were keeping him contained. And that's what you have to do against Jalen Hurts. His best plays in that game, in his career, this season, whatever sample size you want to use, is when Jalen Hurts is outside the pocket, making plays with his legs, throwing the ball downfield, playing a little bit of a backyard football, if you will, guys making routes. I'm not saying he can't make plays inside the pocket, but that's not where he performs at his best. And we've seen that. And we saw that the Eagles were, the 49ers were aware of said situation, and they did it perfectly by having the outsides covered, kind of making him stay within their form and not rushing him and letting him get upfield quickly, and made him pretty much a pocket passer. And we saw what happened. The 49ers defensive game plan was executed perfectly. Hopefully the Cowboys, like Nick Bosa said, watch the film and can do something similar. I don't think it'll be, 42-19 or something like that. I don't think that'll be the score of this game, but I do think the Cowboys will come away with the win, and hopefully they can try to emulate what the 49ers did, and we'll see what the Eagles are made of on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing them trying to emulate that because obviously, Jalen Hurts, it seems like his knee is in fact bothering him and not allowing him to do all the things that he would seemingly want to, but they're still going to want to attack this team running the football, and particularly with Jalen Hurts.
And I am scared of that. If just straight up running the football between the tackles, I think that's the Cowboys a little bit deficiency. And I will say that is a part that kind of worries me because they haven't been able to get the running game going. If they do early, that's not a good sign for the Cowboys.
Yeah, especially because that would force you to try and commit more forward, and then, leaving guys on islands, no matter how good they are, is not really.
And that's what we got beating against the Seahawks. Those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, guys on islands, zero coverage, man-to-man, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, DK all running just man beaters, out routes.
You say you weren't worried, though.
I'm just saying that's where we were exposed to. I don't think that they're going to be put in said position like that.
Yeah, but you didn't even want to talk about it. You felt like that was not worth discussing.
So that wasn't the first half. And you said Deron Bland. Okay. And in the second half, it wasn't Deron Bland. It was Jordan Lewis getting cooked. And Javon Curse getting cooked. And we still came away with the dub. So I'm not worried. You said, are you worried about Deron Bland? Worry going into the Eagles game? 0. Worry going into Commanders game? 0. Worry going into this Eagles game? 0. And he'll prove me right again. So, you can doubt me all you want. Deron Bland goes out there and balls and makes it very easy to say I'm confident in his ability.
Well, with that being said, I do find it interesting because the Cowboys pass rush has been more focused on stunting and getting to the quarterback and applying pressure that way. I'm interested to see if they do, in fact, try and play it in that particular way, go away from, I guess, maybe what I would more term as their game, which is going upfield and attacking the quarterback, and maybe if they do try and, bracket a little bit, try and keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket and dare him to beat them down the field. Also, one of the things to consider is you don't have a Fred Warner necessarily.
100%. We don't have Fred or Dre Greenlaw.
So I'm interested in seeing if they do go for the perspective of we're going to try and match what the Niners did exactly, or if it's like, that's fine, but we have our way of playing them that we feel comfortable with.
A quarterback spy is very important when playing the Eagles, and we saw Fred Warner was spying Jalen Hurts a good amount of the time, keeping him, in check within the pocket and making sure he doesn't make some out of crazy plays. So I'll be interested to see who that guy is for the Cowboys and how well he can execute it.